So I will click on thank you, and maybe put that in the Zoom room. So I will. Again, I apologize. I know there's some confusion today with the link. My error of some kind. The good news is we'll record this session and we'll make it available to everybody. I thank you all for being here, and you guys know the way that I work. What I like to do is tell my mind what I want, where I want to lead it. I want to lead my mind as opposed to having my mind lead me somewhere. Why is that? Because if I'm going to lead my mind, then that gives me the opportunity to decide what kind of information I want to hear. It gives me the opportunity to decide the way that I want to feel when I have my next interaction. And so I'm going to share my screen here, and I'm going to once again illustrate one of the things that I do to make me be at my best at all times. And right now, this is a moment in time when I'd like to be at my best. I have a chance to interact with you. You are people who are important to me. Your success is important to me. Our success as a group depends entirely on how we behave on a moment by moment basis over the course of the days during which we establish a leadership foundation. So I talk about the idea of us guiding our mind and doing something that dilates our soul, that makes us feel at our best. And so in the next 3 minutes, I'm going to do something that I know will dilate my soul, and I'm going to let you participate. And I hope that it'll do the same for you. Whenever I see anyone or anything do something so unbelievably good that it defies human description, then that implies that there is something beyond human involved, that there's some spark of the divine. Whenever I see someone or something do anything that is indescribably good, then what I do is it puts me in touch with the divine and it removes the barriers. It makes things seem not just possible, but likely, which might otherwise seem impossible. And so I'll give you the backdrop here. This is the 2009. Oh, for those of you who are not racing fans, horse racing fans, this would be the equivalent of horse racing Super Bowl or the final game of horse racing's World Series. This is the Stanley Cup playoff seventh game. That's what this is. And unique to this experience, there is a filly. Her name is Zenyatta. And she is racing against all of the big boys, the boys. And you know the deal. The fact is that a female horse is highly, highly unlikely to be physically able to compete with a male horse. She can compete very effectively with female horses, but competing against a male horse is another realm. Here we have the equivalent of Venus Williams winning the men's Wimbledon. Here we have the equivalent of Caitlin Clark being the MVP of the NBA, not of the WNBA. It borders upon impossible. So this is Zenyatta. She had the distinction of being the thoroughbred horse who has won more races in a row than any other thoroughbred ever, whether it be a stallion or a gelding or a mare or a filly. And here we have Zenyatta. And the reason that Zenyatta is so encouraging and empowering for me is because for whatever reason, I have always felt, and by the way, this is an important lesson too. We don't know what anyone else feels like. We can see the way they present themselves, but we don't know what it feels like to be them. I'm aware of that. And most people look at me and they assume it must feel all the time unbelievable to be me. Such a life of success. The fact is that I've always felt like an underdog. My entire life, I have felt like an underdog. I have always felt like I'm running from the back of the pack. That's one of the things that has provoked my success as an underdog, always trying to prove to myself that I was as good as those other people. Now, the good news is that I no longer labor with that. But my whole life, I felt like I was running from the back of the pack. My whole life, I felt like the deck was stacked against me until one day I gained empowerment and I came to understand the truth. But until I came to understand the truth, that idea of always being behind was always there. And the thing I love about Zenyatta is that she won 19 races in a row. No thoroughbred's ever done it. And 19 out of 19, she won from behind. And here, though she is a very famous thoroughbred by this time, she is a female horse. She is a filly racing against stallions. Therefore, she is the underdog. And so let's spend 3 minutes and watch Zenyatta do something that is literally impossible. And that will remove any barriers from me, at least. I'll be able to now see things as likely, which I might otherwise have seen as unlikely, as possible, which I might otherwise have seen as impossible, and easy if I might have thought them hard. Let's watch Zenyatta.
$5 million on the and a legacy and potentially horse of the year. end the unbeaten streak. Can Zenyatta stay undefeated?
Breeders' Cup Classic. Fields sent on their way in the Breeders' Cup Classic to the roar of the Santa Anita crowd. Regal Ransom bounced away quickly. Zenyatta is dead last. Zenyatta's dead last early. It's Regal Ransom going on. Gio Ponte, Einstein is right there. Colonel John in the white colours. Summerbird has the red cap in the vanguard too. Rip Van Winkle is on the outside and Twice Over racing right behind them. They tightly grouped and not in a big hurry out on the lead. Then it's Awesome Gem. Gio Ponte's back fourth last. Been followed then by Richard's Kid. Then comes Mind That Bird and Zenyatta is dead last. Zenyatta last. Got to be giving them about 10, 11 lengths start. They grow to the three-quarter pole now in the Classic, and it's Regal Ransom just setting a sensible pace, not in a big hurry out here. Rip Van Winkle now goes up second, and Colonel John scrapes the paint in third. Einstein's right there too. Girolamo, white cap far side. Here's Kent DeSormo and Summerbird. They six at the rail, just 5 off the leader. Then it comes Twice Over, Awesome Gem, and Gio Ponte's giving them 7 length start. Then it's Richard's Kid. Now here's Zenyatta. Zenyatta is still a good 10, 11 off the leaders. And then it's 4 back to Mind That Bird. A half mile to go now in the Classic, and still the leader is Regal Ransom, a length and a half. Rip Van Winkle being sent along after him. Then Colonel John. On the far side, Girolamo. Einstein is right there. Summerbird at the rail. Twice Over is next. Then Awesome Gem. Gio Ponte's behind that. Then Richard's Kid. And now here's Zenyatta, and let's see. Zenyatta has a lot of ground to make up. Zenyatta, if she wins this, she'll be a super horse. She's starting to pick them off though. Zenyatta going to hook to the outside. Meanwhile, it's Colonel John. Summerbird in the red cap. And Zenyatta's come to the outside. Zenyatta coming flying on the grandstand side. Gio Ponte on the inside. Summerbird is right there. This is unbelievable. Zenyatta, what a performance. One we'll never forget. Looked impossible, but
My microphone's not on. I'm sorry. My question for each of you is, do you feel different now than you felt just 3 minutes ago? I do. I feel different. That was encouraging to me. That was empowering. Here was a filly running against stallions. She's an underdog. She was 10 lengths off. She was last. And Zenyatta's dead last. And then Zenyatta won. And she didn't just win, did she? I mean, she won in such convincing fashion. There was absolutely no question who the superstar was. And this was a superstar running against other superstars. My question for you is this. Do you allow any ice that may have built up on your wings in times past? Do you allow some past lack of success or failure? Do you allow some mistake made in the past? Do you allow that to essentially be the weight that you carry that stops you from performing at the way that you could perform? When I watch Zenyatta run, and those 19 races, I watched them all so many times, I smile broadly because I see me in her. I see me in her. I see a willingness to do that which is required to succeed. And I see I can find joy in the fact that no longer do I feel like an underdog, but I can also find joy in the fact that being an underdog for so many years fashioned the person that I am. If you felt like you're an underdog, understand that experience has fashioned the person that you are. And then realize that at this moment in time, we have found a mechanism that makes it possible for us to change the slope, the trajectory of our lives. So in this session, I have a couple of thoughts for you. And I realize there's some of you who this will be repeat for, because some of you have been in my community for a period of time and have heard many of these teachings, and others of you, you're brand new. And so there's a group of lessons that I teach, which in total are called 35 years. Now, I first created this content a decade ago, and it was then called 25 years. And it was 25 years. What I've learned in 25 years, you can learn in the next 25 minutes. Well, a decade more has gone by, and I've learned some really important things in the last decade. In fact, I will tell you some of the most important lessons of my life have been in the last 2.5 years, really and truly. Some of the most important lessons in my life. And 3 years ago, I had no idea how badly I needed to learn those lessons that were upcoming in the next 2.5 years. And I am grateful for having learned the lessons, but I'm also grateful that that learning is now in the past so that I can act upon those lessons. Well, in the 35 years, what I've learned in 35 years, you can learn in 35 minutes. I'm not quite sure that we'll get through them all because it's been another decade, and so we'll do a part of them. And the first thing that I would like to ask each of you is this: where do you find yourself on the face of the clock dial? Where are you on the face of the clock dial? And you might say, Randy, what in the world does that mean? Well, I'll draw it for you. Imagine this. Imagine a clock dial. And of course, here is 12, and here is 3, and here is 6, and here is 9. And so here we have the face of a clock dial. High noon is when last year was the best year of your life in every single way. Relationships were at an all-time high. Finances were at an all-time high. Personal feeling of self-worth at an all-time high. Your spiritual life at an all-time high. And probably, maybe we've never had all of those things be at an all-time high all at once. But when the preponderance is very, very good, high noon is when last year was just about as good as it can get. Now, high noon is an interesting place because people who are at high noon are very seldom looking for change. Why should they? They're at high noon. Last year was the best year of their life. Next year looks better still. Why should they change? Well, it should change or become willing to change because my experience has shown that the hands on the clock dial never stand still. Never. They are always moving. And if they are moving with the natural flow, they will periodically move into areas that we do not want to be. The hands on the clock dial are always moving. If we don't take specific actions, they will rotate into places we would like to avoid. The hands on the clock dial can be turned backwards. They can be frozen, but it takes knowledge, it takes willingness, and it then takes skill. Knowledge, willingness, and skill can freeze the hands on the clock dial. And when one comes to understand the importance of that, then one, I hope, will choose to gather the knowledge and develop the skill. So high noon was when last year was the best year ever. What is 3? 3 is when something has changed and it's become evident to other people. See, at 2:59, something has changed, but other people are not aware of it. At 3 o'clock, something has changed, and other people are now aware of it. And so what are some examples of things that might have changed, and how might that impact the way that one might receive our message? Well, what if I have a friend a number of years ago? I live in Utah, and in the area that I live, it's a Delta airline hub. And so there are a lot of Delta employees here. Delta mechanics, Delta flight attendants, Delta pilots. They're all here, like a lot. It's a big part of our community. And I remember, it's been a long number of years ago, 15, 16 years ago. I had a friend who was a Delta, flew big long haul airplanes. He was flying a DC-10. It was that many years ago. I don't think DC-10s are still in commercial service on airlines, but he was a DC-10 pilot, flying long haul flights from the United States to Tokyo, United States to Europe, and so on. And he was also very well placed in the pilots union. And so a very respected individual, a highly compensated person. And so now imagine, his name was John. And so now imagine that John is a highly respected long haul Delta pilot. He's a captain. He's also very highly positioned in the Delta pilots union. And he's a person who is known and respected in the local community. And so now imagine that you get a phone call from John. Everything in his life, as far as you can tell, is absolutely a beautiful thing. John calls and says, hey, I'm interested, or I've become involved in another project. It's called LEV. And this is something that I think could benefit you as well. It's about artificial intelligence. Let's talk. Well, you'll receive that message, will you not, through a filter of, how do I perceive John? My gosh, John's winning in all aspects of life. He's got a nice marriage. I can see that. His children are happy and they do well in school. And I mean, everything looks really good. I see his name being talked about in positive circles. And so if John is interested, there must be something here that's really good, because look how great John's life is. You see, we see the information being offered by another through the filter of the one offering to us the opportunity. That's the truth. Now, there are skills that we can develop which will cause a person to see the opportunity being offered as opposed to seeing the one who is offering the opportunity. But no one, I've never met a single person who at the very outset had those skills. And so this is the truth. We need to acknowledge the truth, measure it, be willing to act upon that truth. And I don't even know if I pushed record. Did I push record on this thing? Record. I did. Gosh, that is such a bonus for me. And so at any rate, we will hear and see the message through the filter of what is our perception of the one offering the opportunity. And so if you are between 12 and 3, understand the magic of the moment. People will see LEV AI through the filter of your success, and that will give them a different perception of LEV AI. Now, that's what it's like between noon and 2:59. At 2:59, we then have this very, very short window. And you say, well, why would it be moving from here to here? Remember I said that John was a part of the Delta Pilots Union and was highly placed. And so John knew a few months back, John knew back here that contract negotiations were not going very well. And in fact, John knew that there were going to be something more than 10,000 Delta pilots laid off, and that there were going to be many, many, many thousands of flight attendants laid off. And so you see, to the world, John still looked like high noon. Nothing had changed. Nothing was visible. That's the way it was between noon and 2:59. As the negotiations continued to get worse and worse and worse, it wasn't going well. It wasn't going well. John knew it. Other people didn't know it. Suddenly, it turned 3 o'clock. How did it turn 3 o'clock? The newspaper said Delta's laying off 10,000 pilots. And just like that, didn't it change now when John makes a contact and says to someone in his circle of influence, I'm interested in another project. It's called LEV AI. Is it or is it not true that there'll be many people who say, John is not calling me because he decided about LEV AI. John is calling me because he might get laid off. John is calling me because the Delta Pilots Union is in trouble right now. You see, the way that one receives the message is completely changed, isn't it? If one is contacting us at 3, something bad has happened and it's become evident to other people. You see, if something happens and only we know, then our candidate will see the message we offer through the filter of, wow, he or she has got it all going on. Suddenly, it stops being 2:59 and it starts being 3. It starts being 3 in a variety of ways. In that case, it was a major layoff by Delta, which is going to impact John specifically. Other examples of what can cause it to go from high noon to 3 is it always looked like things were going pretty well in that relationship, and suddenly there's a divorce. And with divorces comes all kinds of financial travail and hardship. And so now maybe John or John's wife is calling me, not because of a profound opportunity for me, but because they've suddenly got a challenge of their own they need to address. And so won't I respond differently if I perceive that you're calling me to help overcome your problem versus they're calling me through a filter of success? John's got it all going on. This is clearly good, or he wouldn't be doing it. He's got everything happening. He's doing it anyway. There's value here for me. You see, if you happen to be between noon and 2:59, understand 2 things. Understand, number 1, that this makes your moment of opportunity critically important because people will act upon your positive influence and the perception they have of you. They'll act upon that, not really the AI opportunity. They're acting upon their perception of you. Now, 2:59 comes and suddenly that perception changes. Now one has to have very different skills, don't they? Very different skills. Now one has to know how to invite. Because if we don't know how to invite, then our candidate will almost without question focus not on the opportunity being offered, but focus instead on the results or personal situation of the one offering the opportunity. That's an inevitable truth. Now, we can work and work and work to develop the skill of what? Mastering the art of the invitation. That will give us a better chance to have the candidate see the opportunity being offered as opposed to seeing the results or the current circumstance of the one offering the opportunity. But there's absolutely nothing that we can do to make it as easy after 3 as it was right before 3. And so if you happen to be one of the fortunate few that are in here, leverage it. Act upon it. Don't take it for granted. Don't think it will always be that way. Why? Because the hands on the clock dial never stand still. Sometimes we can see the movement of the clock dial of the hands, and sometimes we can't. Remember about 5 years ago, life was just moving on pretty well. Everything was okay. And then suddenly COVID reared its ugly head. And isn't it true that in a matter of literally weeks, an entire population or at least that segment of the population who was living between noon and 3, 65, 70% of them almost instantly went from between noon and 3 to between 3 and 6. See, sometimes we can see the slow, steady movement of the hand on the clock dial, and we can recognize it's going in the wrong direction. We can take action to try to freeze it and turn it back around. Sometimes we don't have any advance notice. Sometimes from out of the blue comes something that causes the hands on the clock dial to skip forward 3 or 4 or 5 notches on that clock. If you're between 12 and 3, understand the hands on the clock dial never stand still. They are always moving. Sometimes they're moving quickly. Sometimes they're moving slowly. Sometimes they're moving back in the direction we want them to move. Sometimes they're moving against us. I will tell you this, just look at my finger. Is it easier for something to move downhill, or is it easier for something to move uphill? A lot easier for it to move downhill, isn't it? Once the hands on the clock dial start moving the wrong direction, it takes something very, very powerful and profound to freeze them, and something very powerful and profound to turn it back. Now, we'll only know in the future. I don't know right now. I believe that I've learned how to live my life between 12 and 3. I believe that. We'll find out in the future. Over the course of my life, I've raced around that clock dial more than once. Some lessons are hard to learn. The first time I raced around the clock dial, I didn't learn the lessons that I should have, and I went around the clock dial again. Well, high noon is when everything's great, and the future looks better still. If that's you, wake up, hedge yourself. The hands on the clock dial will move, and they might move suddenly in a day because of some anticipated event, and they might move slowly and you can see it. The moving slowly and you can see it is not necessarily any easier to address than when they move fast. Why? Because, I mean, you know the old story, you can turn the heat up on the frog in the pot at a degree at a time, at a degree at a time, at a degree at a time. It is so easy to get complacent as those hands are moving in the wrong direction. What is between 3 and 6? Well, 3 o'clock, something went wrong, and it's become evident to other people. And by the way, talk about it in my own life. It wasn't all that long ago. It feels like yesterday that I was an employee at Merrill Lynch. That goes clear back to 1983, 84, 85. So it's a really long time ago. And I'm just very upfront about my life's experiences. There's no shame in them. I've had some great experiences and I've had some bad ones. Part of it is that I was literally crippled in drugs and alcohol for a long time. And I've been clean and sober now for many years, and I remain actively involved in a program of recovery, and I'm no longer burdened by addiction. In fact, I'm benefited by the fact that I've recovered from that and stay actively involved in a program of recovery. But nevertheless, I remember in 1984, I guess it was, I was buried in cocaine, and I was a senior vice president at Merrill Lynch, and I, in fact, mismanaged client accounts while impaired. That is what happened. And there's no denying that's happened. And clients lost money as a result of that. And so very correctly, I was fired by Merrill Lynch. And not only was I fired by Merrill Lynch, but I at that time got a lifetime suspension from the New York Stock Exchange. So what I did for a living on Friday, I could not do on Monday. I couldn't go from Merrill Lynch to Shearson. I couldn't go from Merrill to BlackRock. No, the party was over. I had to find something completely different to do for a living. So imagine if I had made the phone call at 2:59 to introduce someone to my new side gig, which in fact was going to be my full-time thing. If I contacted them at 2:59, this is Randy Schrader calling. He's a senior vice president at Merrill Lynch. He lives in one of the wealthiest communities in San Diego County behind Gates. He's got a lovely wife and children and family, and Randy's got it going on. And he's calling me, asking me to participate in this thing. That's a great idea. 3:01. They saw in the newspaper, Randy just got fired from Merrill Lynch and got a lifetime suspension from the New York Stock Exchange. And then I call. It's a lot different, isn't it? My gosh, how different is it? And so it is really, really important that one identify where we are on the face of the clock dial, and then having candidly appraised where we are, then make a plan to assure that if we're not between 12 and 3, that we get there in the shortest possible time. And that if we are between 12 and 3, we gather the knowledge and develop the skills to make sure that we never fall outside of that envelope. And that if we are somehow heading in the wrong direction, that we cauterize the wound right now. I mean, now, in this session, cauterize the wound. Well, what is 3 o'clock? Something's gone wrong. It's become evident to other people. And this is my experience, my personal experience and my observation of other people's experience. When things start going wrong, that is the very moment when we should be the most resolute. That is the moment when we should have the greatest amount of energy. That is the moment when we should simply be undeniable in our pursuit of corrective behaviors. That's what we should do. You know what almost everybody does? They go into the fetal position wrapped in fear and shame from whatever has caused us to slip from 12 to 3 to 3 to 6. And so we spend, instead of investing the days as the hands on the clock dial move closer and closer to 6. And what is 6? 6 is when at 3 o'clock, something changed, situation changed, but we didn't change to correctly address the situation. If something changes and the direction is wrong and we've fallen out of the window between 12 and 3, if something changed and we don't change to address that something, we will very shortly, I mean, it can happen so fast. It might have taken 3 years to go from 12 to 3. You can go from 3 to 6 in 3 months or in 3 days, it seems like. And what is that? 6 o'clock is when something changed. We didn't respond appropriately to it. We got frozen in fear. And surprise, surprise, the inactivity, which came from the fear or the improper decision making provoked by the fear, resulted in things getting worse. And now it is not just that people find out that Randy got fired and got a lifetime suspension from the New York Stock Exchange, but now they're saying that I'm separated from my wife. We have financial travail that is tearing our family apart. They see that my home is listed for sale. They see that I'm no longer driving a Lamborghini, that I'm now driving a 1976 Pinto or whatever it is. And this is the truth, folks. I would like to say that I am a deep believer in the goodness of all humanity. I'm a deep believer in the goodness of some humanity. I'm also a deep believer in the absolute cruelty of some humanity. I mean, the absolute cruelty. I would like to tell you that my experience is that when things go wrong, that the world is full of people there saying, hey, come on, let me help you. Let me help you get out of that situation. And I'm sorry that that happened to you and your family. And I'd like to help you correct it. Let's go forward. I didn't get those phone calls. It's not the ones that I got. What I got instead were, I told you that guy was no good. I knew this wasn't going to work. Is it when things start to go against you? I'd like to tell you the world is going to reach out a helping hand to you. My experience is that the world tends to pile on when things go wrong. That is human nature, and we're not going to change it. And so 6 o'clock is when something's changed. We allowed fear to get in the way. We did not act resolutely. We did not cauterize the wound. It continued getting worse. And now back here, it's become evident to others that not only has something changed, but that we have not reacted to the change in such a way that we're likely to come back. Our entire world writes us off. And the movement between 6 and 9 typically takes place in less than a month. And now suddenly, if we didn't drink too much before, we start to drink too much. If our marriage wasn't in trouble before, it probably is now. Do I believe that financial wellness is a requirement for a good marriage? Yes, I do. Financial strain is as big, I consider it to be as deadly as some forms of cancer. That's the truth. People take their lives because they're diagnosed with an incurable form of cancer. People take their lives because of extraordinary financial pressure. Those things happen. I think that financial pressure can be such a burden upon us that it makes it almost impossible for us to see the solution. All we can see is the problem. And if all we see is the problem, it'll get bigger and bigger and bigger and it'll dwarf everything else in our field. There's nothing else that we can see. And so the first thing to determine is, where are we on the face of the clock dial? Really and truly, no kidding. Where are we? Back here, total chaos. Back here, if we were wise, we sold our home. Up here, if we weren't wise enough, we've lost our home. That's what it looks like. Now, once again, I'd like to tell you that I've only been around the clock dial once and I learned my lesson. That's not true. I've been around that clock dial twice, all the way around, and 3/4 of the way around the third time. Now, I believe today, and we'll only know looking back, but I believe that I've learned how to live between 12 and 3. I believe that I've learned that when the cash flow stops, that you cut expenses. I mean, those are such simple things, but I didn't know them the first time around the block. I believe that I have learned that the hands of the clock dial don't stand still, and that though I might not be aware of their movement, they are moving. And I need to be completely conscious of the fact of the never-ending movement of the clock dial's hands, and make sure that I am in here, risk averse to the point that I don't take the kind of risks that move me down here. I can't be completely risk averse, or that behavior will also move me down here, because we have to continue generating income, the vast majority of us. At any rate, my question for each of you is this: where are you on the face of the clock dial? Having quantified where are you on the face of the clock dial, what are you willing to do about it? it takes something almost unbelievable to freeze the hands on the face of the clock dial and in short order turn them around. Almost unbelievable. And so where we find ourselves right now, we find ourselves right now at a moment in time where the global adoption of artificial intelligence is an absolute mandate. It's not like that. No, it is happening. It can't be stopped. You can't stop it. I can't stop it. The global adoption of artificial intelligence is a mandate which has begun. And when I said it takes something profound to freeze the hands on the face of the clock dial, to turn around and make them go forward, this is profound. This is one of those moments. How do you know it's one of those moments? Because when a message is so remarkable, when the message is so remarkable that the eyes of the observer are drawn to the message, as opposed to being drawn to the personal circumstance of the one delivering the message. And don't underestimate the importance of this. Why is it that the exact same message delivered by person A is received differently than when delivered by person B, if it's the same message? It is because the message has not been so profound that it would cause the candidate to see, in fact, the opportunity being offered, as opposed to having their eyes drawn to the results of the one offering the opportunity or the personal circumstance of the one offering the opportunity. So when one comes to understand where he or she is on the face of the clock dial, when one comes to understand that if the hands are moving against us, it will take something remarkable to stop it, not something casual. It'll take something remarkable. And we have to act with energy. We have to act decisively. We have to act with certainty. And we have to act with a high degree of intensity to stop the hands of the clock. And even if we are acting that way, if we don't have a message that would draw the eyes of the observer to the message, so powerful and profound that the results of the one offering the opportunity are obscured. They don't matter at all, or they scarcely matter. This is a magic moment for all of you who are between 3 and 6 and maybe between 6 and 9. This is a moment in time where the global adoption of AI is so profound that it has the ability, it's not automatic, but the possibility is there. If one learns how to properly deliver an invitation, the opportunity exists, no matter where you are on the face of the clock dial, to have the candidate's eyes see the opportunity being offered as opposed to seeing the results of the one offering the opportunity. Do not let this brief moment in time, it's brief. Is it a year? I don't know. Is it 2 years? I doubt it. But don't let this brief moment in time where the global adoption of AI is such a widespread topic, and yet there is so much ignorance around it. That's the magic, folks. Widespread discussion, that discussion being almost and totally dominated by ignorance as opposed to by knowledge and fact. That's the moment in time when we can freeze the hands on the face of the clock dial and when we can turn it around. In some instances, if we allow the hands to slip closer and closer to 6, there's not a darn thing you can do to stop it from playing its miserable way out. Right now, if you find the hands on the clock dial inching towards 6, you have found a mechanism that is powerful enough to freeze the hands on the clock dial and turn them around. And I had a call not very long ago with one of my good friends in this business. And we're close enough friends that he shares with me his life circumstance. I know what it is. I will tell you that 150 days ago, in fact, I would say 70 days ago, that friend knew very well that he was somewhere between 5 and 6. That's where he was. And the hands on the clock dial are moving in the wrong direction. That's where he was. But then he found LEV. And having found LEV, he didn't just find it, but he acted upon it with unbelievable energy. I mean, I am so very impressed. I've seen so many people get completely frozen in fear. He didn't freeze himself in fear. He instead assessed the situation, made a decision about what he was going to do about it. And you know, that individual who was between 5:30 and 6 o'clock, not very many weeks ago, now has more than 20,000 people in his organization in LEV. And he doesn't just have 20,000 people. That's enrollment tree volume. And he has not just one major leg. He has at least 3 major initiatives going on. You see, what he did was he was willing to identify where he was on the clock dial, not get stuck in denial of that fact, and not become a victim of, oh my gosh, this went wrong and that went wrong. No, to simply quantify that which is measured can be improved, to set all emotion aside. Where am I on the face of the clock dial? No recriminations, about what got me there, no looking back and beating myself up about what are the decisions that I made or did not make, which resulted in. No, a simple, pragmatic appraisal. Where am I on the face of the clock dial? No kidding, where am I? Now, based upon that knowledge, what am I willing to do about it? And what he was willing to do about it was pull out the stops and work more hours than a person can work and not be the tiniest bit concerned about who said no. He was only concerned about who said yes. And a guy who was at 5:30 or 5:45 on the clock dial, he'll be back between 3 and 12 by the time 30 more days goes by. And he'll have his largest annual income in his life in 2026. He froze the hands on the clock dial and got them back between 12 and 3 in a matter of 5 weeks because he found an opportunity so profound that became possible. Folks, I hope very much that if you find in fact, no matter where you're on the clock dial, this is a moment in time where you can freeze it and you can get it going the direction you want it to go. Please do. And so that's the first lesson that I learned. 35 years. What I've learned in 35 years, you can learn in 35 minutes. The first lesson is to understand where I am on the face of the clock dial, to understand that the hands never stand still, that if I want to freeze them and move them backwards, I've got to find a project of incredible importance, and I've then got to pull out the stops. I can't be lackadaisical. I can't be so-so. I have got to get after it. Where are you on the face of the clock dial, and what are you prepared to do about it? I ask myself that question all the time, and I'm happy that I've got this knowledge and the willingness to act. And I hope you do too. A second part of this discussion, I should look and see what time it is here so I don't keep you guys too long. I know these particular topics and concepts make me really excited, so I know that I can get a little bit lengthy in my discussion. The second section of this group of lessons entitled 35 Years is the vehicle. And I've hinted about this vehicle in the various business presentations. And those of you who have been part of the various leadership trainings have heard me discuss the vehicle. But now I'm going to do it one more time so that everybody understands. And when I say one more time, I'll probably do it more than that. So I used to call this keys to the creation of wealth. And then I discovered that creating a large income is not the same as creating wealth. Making money and having money are not the same thing. Having money and creating wealth are not the same thing. And so there's a different bank of knowledge and a different set of disciplines that have to be developed. If we start making more money, that's a good thing. That does not mean by definition we'll create wealth unless we gather other knowledge. I'm not going to talk about this now in terms of wealth creation. I'm going to talk about this in simply, these are the things that we would need to do to generate a large income in the shortest possible period of time without ever engaging in any behavior that is absent of complete, total, absolute, rigorous honesty and transparency, right? I won't teach you how to make more money more quickly that would result in any violation of integrity. That's not me. And I think you know that, but I have to say it because I'm not going to teach you whatever you have to do to make money. No, whatever we can do that is fundamentally correct, morally right, that will benefit other people and that will help us make money. Those are things we should do with real energy. And so the first key is this. This, obviously, we can all see it. This is a vehicle. And so the first key to the creation of a large income in a short period of time is to find and occupy a vehicle that is going the direction that you want to go. It's a complete fascination for me that I interact with people very frequently who are involved in companies, businesses, enterprises, industries that are going backwards. And they try to convince me they're going to go forwards. Well, no, you're not. If the company you're in, if the industry you're in is going backwards, do not think you're going to go forward. You take the strongest Olympic swimmer in the world. They can jump in a river and swim upstream for a little while, but pretty soon they're going to become exhausted and they're going to go the direction of the flow, and so are you. And so the first key is to find a vehicle going the direction you want to go. Sounds so obvious, and yet that basic principle is violated daily by millions of people. Second, find a vehicle that is moving the speed at which you would like to grow. So this morning, I went down to the store because I wanted to buy some sparkling water. And so as I went down to the store, I knew that we'd be having this conversation later today. And so I glanced at my speedometer to see how fast my vehicle was going. First, my vehicle was going the direction I wanted to go. It was heading towards the store. Second, I glanced down at my speedometer to see how fast the vehicle was going. And it said that I was going 45 miles per hour as I headed from our home down towards that store. So if the vehicle was going 45, how fast was I going, folks? I was going 45. I meet people every day. They're in vehicles that are going slow, and they tell me they're going to go fast. No, you're not. defies the laws of nature. You can go from the back of the bus to the front of the bus, but you'll still be in the same bus. You cannot outperform the vehicle for long. You can get involved as a newcomer. You can race to the front of the bus, but you're still in the same bus, and you're going to be marginalized to the speed of the vehicle. So number one, find a vehicle going the direction you want to go. And number two, find a vehicle moving the speed at which you would like to grow. So I looked at my speedometer. How fast was my vehicle going? 45. If my vehicle was going 45, how fast was I going? I was going 45. Do not try to convince yourself, and do not be convinced by another that you will go fast in a vehicle that goes slow, because you will not. You will be marginalized to the speed of the vehicle. Number one, find a vehicle moving the direction you'd like to go. Number two, find that kind of a vehicle moving the speed at which you would like to grow, or the speed at which you must grow. Number three, find that kind of a vehicle that is much closer to its origin than it is to its destination. Because literally every day that the vehicle moves down the line from the point of origin to its ultimate destination, that means by definition that some part of the opportunity has been harvested by another. That is the truth. So find a vehicle going the direction you want to go, find a vehicle moving the speed at which you would like to grow, and find a vehicle that is closer, much closer to its origin than destination. So for example, I am a believer in Apple stock. I use Apple devices. I think it's a brilliantly run company. I like their technology. And so we use their products and I buy their stock. Well, today, Apple has $1 trillion market cap. $1 trillion, that's the enterprise value. Do you suppose the company has already grown more, or will it have more growth in the future on a percentage basis? Folks, it could never, ever in the future have the same percentage growth that it's exhibited in the past. It's already a $1 trillion market cap. Way more of its growth is behind it than in front of it. Years ago, I bought Apple stock to have a great big financial gain. Today, I buy Apple stock for stability and modest capital appreciation and a tiny dividend. You see, the further that any vehicle moves away, it's not just direct selling, the further any vehicle moves away from its point of origin, the less opportunity there is. It doesn't mean that it's bad out here. It means it's different. Up here, it is to generate a little dividend and have security and modest growth. Those people who had the wisdom, the intuition, or the luck to get involved at the very beginning and stay the course, they became wealthy. Remember, this is called keys to the creation of wealth, keys to the creation of a large income in the shortest possible period of time. Find a vehicle going the direction you want to go. Find a vehicle moving the speed at which you'd like to grow. Find that kind of a vehicle that is closer, much closer to its origin than its destination. And then this may be the single most important lesson that I have ever learned in entrepreneurship. And it is this: if we find that kind of a vehicle, do not simply occupy it. If we simply occupy the vehicle, you know what? The vehicle's moving forward and the vehicle has a back door. If all we do is occupy it, it will move forward, we'll fall out of the back, and we'll simply be looking at the taillights and watching with fascination the tremendous successes of other people that we missed because all we did was occupy. And so what then should we do? Not just get in the vehicle. This is the lesson that I learned. I'm a struggler. I am. I'll get up earlier than other people will. I'll stay up later. I'll make one more phone call. If 10 people in a row give me a good solid hard no, I'll call the 11th with the same cheerful attitude that I had when I called the first. That's who I am. That's the way it is. But you know, that doesn't, that willingness to act, that struggling has never produced the outcome that I want. What has produced the outcome, it's not been about struggling to make something happen. It's about identifying those things which are destined to occur and then causing that which was destined to occur just a little more quickly. Sounds like our company, doesn't it? Identifying that which is destined to occur. Do you think that you are responsible for the global adoption of AI? No, none of us could think that, could we? Do you believe that you could stop the global adoption of AI? So here are the questions that I ask myself. Does the project require me for its success? If the project requires me for its success, I shouldn't do it, because that means that I have a job and I'm not interested in one. So number one, I've got to identify projects that don't need me. They'll work without me. If you believe that our company, LEV AI, needs you for it to succeed, for heaven's sakes, don't do it. That would be the single biggest reason to not do it. If I know that the venture does not require me, then that means that perhaps I should. If I believe that it does not require me for its success, and then if I believe that if I mastered all of my resources and power, I called every person I know of influence in business and government, and I tried to stop the global adoption of AI. Do you think I could? Of course not. Absolutely not. This is a foregone conclusion. Just as the world adopted computers, just as the world adopted the internet, the world is adopting AI, and no one and nothing is going to stop it. Identify those things which are destined to occur and then become a catalyst in causing that which was destined to occur a little more quickly. That simple lesson has been worth 50 million US dollars in earnings to me. Don't try to make something happen. Identify a vehicle going the direction you would like to go. Well, here we have LEV AI. This company is going to go live next week. I'm not making a formal announcement here. Blake will do that. The company is going to go live next week. And even today, in these earliest moments, here we are. You could even say that the vehicle is still in the garage. It's just about to exit the garage. Right now, the vehicle's in the garage, but it started moving forward. And that is evidenced by the fact that we have, I guess, 33,000 plus early adopters. And so from 0 to 33,000 participants in 4.5 weeks. So is that going the direction that you want to go? Go in the direction I want to go. Is that moving at a velocity that would allow you to grow in an unrestricted way? A vehicle moving the direction you want to go, moving the speed at which you would like to grow. Today, our company is not even out of the garage. It's about to leave the garage. And we can look at this in two ways. We can look at it in terms of the global adoption of AI. There are 8 billion people on planet Earth. Out of those 8 billion people, about 3.75% right now are trying to use AI. That means that there's there is 96.25% of 8 billion people who are all going to be required to adopt AI. This is what we need to understand. This is why Sundar Pichai says that the CEO of Google, this is why he says this is more profound than fire or electricity or anything we've done in the past. This is why the head of DeepMind says this will be bigger, says the difference with AI is going to be bigger than the Industrial Revolution and perhaps 10 times faster. And so with that in mind, if we have literally billions of people who will be required by societal norm to adopt AI, if we remarkably offer at this moment the single best iteration of AI with the only all-inclusive group of applications which communicate and literally teach one another so they're better the next day, if you got the best product, the best technology, and the best price in an environment where there'll be a mandated adoption by more than 7 billion people, well, now we've identified a vehicle going the direction we want to go, moving the speed at which we would like to grow, which is at the absolute genesis. None of the growth has yet occurred. When we talk about 33,000 people, that can sound exciting until you compare it to 7.5 billion. And then that'll give you an idea of how insignificant is that beginning so far. And so, folks, you have found a vehicle that is going the direction you want to go. You have found a vehicle that moving the speed at which you would like to grow. You have found a vehicle that is much closer to its origin than its ultimate destination, ridiculously so. The question is not whether you will occupy the vehicle. You will, because you're going to be required to adopt AI. The question is, will you be the catalyst in causing that which was destined to occur a little more quickly? In other words, the question is not, will you enter the vehicle? You will. You have no choice. The question is, will you be the one who grabs the steering wheel and puts your foot on the gas? Will you be the one who causes that which was destined to occur a little bit more quickly? If the answer to that is yes, then you have an opportunity to do something financially that is more profound than anything you've done before. And you now have a legitimate chance to freeze the hands on the face of the clock dial, to move them into that 12 to 2 range, 12 to 3 range. And if we then, as a group, as an organization, have the willingness to, over the course of the next 3 years, 4 years, and 5, gather the knowledge and develop the skills such that we can take that more rapid flow of income and learn the difference in making money and having money, and then learn the difference in having money and creating wealth. To the extent that we find the vehicle that meets the parameters that I've described, and we then gather knowledge and develop new skills and character attributes reflective of all that I've described here today, then we have a chance to live the balance of our lives between 12 and 2. There's no greater gift that I could offer you, unless your health is shot and I could offer you back health. I can't do that. Almost beyond that, I know there's nothing I can do to turn back the hands of time. I can't make you, if you're 70 years old, I can't make you 60. But you know what I can do? I can cause your optimism and confidence in the future to be at the highest level of your life. And if you're 70 years old and you're more confident in the future than you've ever been, then in all respects, many respects, you may in fact be younger than you were when you were 60. There's almost no limitation to the amount of good things that can happen here if we gather the knowledge, I appreciate you being here to gather knowledge. If we act upon that knowledge and develop skill, and if we then become resolute in making a decision to push ourselves hard against the grinding wheel of life, such that any little character flaw that acts like the princess and the pea, that pea under the ninth mattress, any little character flaw that causes a person to resist interaction with us, that needs to be neutralized, And if we can neutralize a character flaw and then take what was once a character flaw and turn it into a future character strength, that will also, by its definition, stop the hands on the clock dial and begin moving them the other direction. And so it's about both the specific behaviors we engage in, but it's also about the personal characteristics and attributes that we develop. These things in combination, when added to the right vehicle, give us a chance to always live between 12 and 3. And that is a gift, absolutely a gift. Well, 35 years. What I've learned in 35 years, you can't learn in 35 minutes because those are only 2 out of 5 lessons. But the good news is we've got a lot of chances in the future. Samantha and I and our small boy Bosco are going to go down to Salt Lake City and go to the Harry Potter exhibition, the Harry Potter experience. That's going to be fun. And while I'm away, I'm going to be periodically glancing at my phone, and I'm going to be seeing registration. As I glance at each one, I'm going to experience one of the great emotions. That emotion is hope. I'm going to have hope for those people, that they see here what I see, and that they're in a position in their lives where they can act upon it with the right kind of energy so they fully harvest the value of this moment. Folks, my time is spent with you. I want you to know I appreciate you. I want you to know that whether or not you believe you can, I know you can. How you say that, Randy? Because I know this. I know that a kind and loving God, for his purposes unknown to us, chose to grant you with the talents required to succeed. It's true. Your talents are different than mine, but they are more than adequate to succeed. That's the good news. The bad news is that talent makes no money. The question is, are each of us willing to work and work and work and work, pushing ourselves against that grinding wheel of life as I've described it, such that we learn, grow, develop, and become a little bit more. To the extent that that is our reality, there is literally no limitation on what we can do. God gave you the talent. If you're willing to work to turn those talents into skills or to become beneficial to others, and then allow your success to become a side effect of theirs, if you're willing to subordinate your success to the successes of other people, then there is literally no limitation to what can be accomplished. My time is spent. Down to Harry Potter we go. You're the best. I'll see you along the way. Bye-bye. By the way, again, tonight, Aaron Barley will conduct the business presentation. That will happen at 9 o'clock Eastern. It will be exceptional. Don't miss it. Be there. Bring some qualified candidates. We could double our membership size today if each one of us put one candidate on tonight's presentation. We could literally double the size of our company today. You can double the size of your organization. If each person in your organization has one candidate on tonight, they're going to enroll. See you along the way. Appreciate you. Bye-bye.